Okay, so to talk about our rotation, we need to think about how we play with our talents and our burst windows. Most notably, we also have shifting power we need to think about, and just, fitting everything in kind of neatly. So our goal, first and foremost, is to start a fight. We want to evocate. The first thing we do is evocate because we want to get our buff up, our Siphon Storm buff up. After you've evocated, you're gonna Arcane Orb, get your first two charges right, like we talked about. We want to skip the weak points of our Arcane Blast. So we use Arcane Orb, get to 2 stacks. Evocation would have actually already given you 1 stack, thanks to this talent here. Evocation grants 1 Arcane charge. So it'll actually be at 3 now. At this point, at the start of the fight with Lust, you're going to be wanting to use Arcane Missiles till you have at least 16 Arcane Harmony stacks. It stacks up to 20, but 16 is enough. Typically, this is like 4 Arcane Missiles if you don't have any procs. 3 if you get a proc of Clearcasting. But yeah, 3 to 4 Arcane Missiles. Get to at least 16 stacks. And then from this phase onwards, you're going to be in this like cycle of rotating your big cooldown and your small cooldown. So what does those cycles look like? A picture over here. So to understand these cycles first, I think it's important to look at what makes up the cycles. So our cycles are mainly split up into a spark phase, which is a radiant spark, and our touch phase, which is touch of the Magi. Our spark phase comes first. Our spark phase will always be Rune, Radiant Spark, Arcane Blast, Arcane Blast, Arcane Blast, Arcane Blast. So 4 Arcane Blasts. These will be at, 4 Arcane Charges, maybe 3 for the first one. And then you're going to Nether Tempest. And then you're going to Barrage, Touch of the Magi. Okay? I actually have a graphic here I borrowed from Toe Grinder's Arcane Guide because he's better with graphics than I am. But yeah, Rune, Radiant Spark, 1, 2, 3, 4 Arcane Blasts, right? And these shows you the Radiant Spark stacks. Then you go into Nether Tempest. And then now that you have your maximum Radiant Spark stack, biggest damage amplifier, we're going to Arcane Barrage. The reason you do this is because Arcane Barrage is our most powerful spell when we have 4 charges and our Arcane Harmony stacks. So using our biggest damage amplifier from Radiant Spark on Arcane Barrage just makes sense. And then after you fire Arcane Barrage, you want to Touch of the Magi. Now it's very important to know that Touch of the Magi is actually off global cooldown. So you're going to be barraging and then Touch of the Magi instantly after. And Touch of the Magi will actually give us 4 stacks back. And the most important thing is that Barrage will land in Touch of the Magi. Because Touch of the Magi's like damage storing component is actually based off when things hit, not when things cast. So you fire your barrage and then you apply the debuff, and then the barrage will hit while the target already has the debuff. That's why we do it in this order here. Now when you have your big cooldown, when you have your Arcane Surge, it will look a little different. We'll actually still be doing Rune, Radiant Spark, like we did here with the Spark phase, but you're only going to do 3 Arcane Blasts, and then you're going to Nether Tempest, and then Arcane Surge. And the reason you do this is because Surge applies, like it hits, right? It hits a target. And so Surge will actually, use a stack and also apply, push the stack 1 more on the Radiant Spark. So, instead of looking at this picture and being like, oh, this is now 0, this is now 1, this is now 2, and this is now 3. This over here being Nether Surge, or Arcane Surge, sorry, will mean that it will, consume the 3rd and give us the 4th. Notably, the Nether Tempest here with Arcane Surge will be before Arcane Surge. The reason it's before, it's a kind of complicated explanation, but essentially, Nether Tempest has some travel time. So if you apply it before Arcane Surge, it will actually continue to tick even after it's expired for a few seconds. And as long as basically it's still ticking while Touch of the Magi is there, we'll be fine. And applying it just before Arcane Surge will actually mean that there will still be damage running as Touch of the Magi expires. So yeah, it'll be Arcane Blast, Arcane Blast, Arcane Blast, Nether Tempest, Arcane Surge, and then Barrage, Touch of the Magi. Back to my text example. So yeah, Arcane Blast, Arcane Blast, Arcane Blast, Nether Tempest, Surge, Barrage, Touch of the Magi. Importantly, do note that you do cast a rune here, right, before your Radiant Spark. So if if you're astute, you might say, well, why do I cast a rune here if I'm going to surge here? Then I'm gonna get a rune anyway. It's because you're going to amplify your Radiant Spark Arcane Blast anyway, and you don't have anything else to do with this rune of power, so you might as well. Yeah. Now, for these two sequences, this is our mini burn, this is our big burn. After you finish with the spark phase, you enter your Touch of the Magi phase, right? Because you cast your Touch of the Magi. Once you're in Touch of the Magi, there's a different rotation that we need to follow. I can't think as Touch of the Magi phase, right? Touch mode. At this point, there's a priority that we want to prioritize. Namely, you want to be Arcane Blasting if you have Nether Precision, which is the buff from consuming Clearcast. So remember when I mentioned you want to Clearcast Arcane Missiles, then Arcane Blast, Clearcast Arcane Missile, Arcane Blast. That's basically the sequence. Instead of thinking about this in priority, you can think of it like that. It's going to be Clearcasting Arcane Missile, Arcane Blast, Clearcasting Arcane Missile, Arcane Blast. If you don't have any Clearcasting Arcane Missiles, just keep casting Arcane Blasts. Also, one last little note. If your Touch of the Magi is about to expire, you're only going to fit one more spell, if it's going to land and you're in Execute, you should Barrage. This is not hugely important. I mean, it is important, but if you're just starting with Arcane, don't worry about this too much. Don't stress it, because you have to take into account travel time of Arcane Barrage. You really want to make sure it lands in Touch of the Magi and things like that. If you can do it, go for it, but do make sure that it does land in Touch of the Magi. Ideally, don't be too far, or that's going to be harder, right? Because there's more travel time. But yeah. So this touch phase will be the exact same, whether you're coming out of Spark or Arcane Surge plus Spark. Yeah. I have a little note over here that basically says when you have Lust up, you can actually do the same thing where you do with Surge, right? Like we talked about, Radiant Spark, Anchor Blast, Arcane Blast, Nether Tempest, Surge, Barrage. If you want to be a little more advanced, once again, don't worry about this if you're just getting started, but I feel the need to mention this. If you actually cast two spells at the exact same time, so namely it's a cast spell and then an instant cast ability, both of them will benefit from the Radiant Spark, the exact same one that's on the target, if they're queued together. So, if you're really queuing them together by mashing them with spell queue. So, when you have maximum stacks of Radiant Spark, number 4 here, if you Arcane Blast and Barrage at the same time, they will both benefit from 4. The downside of doing this is that, you're consuming some time from your Arcane Surge to do this. It is worth it if you have Lust, mainly because Radiant Spark does have a duration. If you don't have Lust, you actually won't fit Arcane Blast, Arcane Barrage before Radiant Spark runs out. Obviously, you don't want your Radiant Spark to run out before your Barrage goes off. Barrage is the important one. So you wouldn't want to sacrifice the Barrage, the Radiant Spark running out for the Barrage just for the Arcane Blast damage. It's not worth it. But with Lust, it's doable. Also, a little side note, don't do this with too high haste, above 104%, because if you have too much haste, you can't queue up spells, basically, of a certain cast time. Once again, this is more advanced. I wouldn't worry about this for now. So now that we know our cooldowns, now that we know our certain window, and if you haven't really figured this out yet, I would really advise you to, get it meshed into it, because this is a scripted rotation. What our rotation will look like is, like I mentioned at the start, you're going to Evocate before the pull, you're going to Orb, you're going to get your Missile stacks, your Arcane Harmony stacks, get to 20, or at least 16. And then you're going to go into your Surge your Surge Spark phase, right? Because you have Arcane Surge, and obviously you have your cooldowns. So you're going to be doing this. You're going to do this exact sequence. If you have Lust, you do this sequence here, just one more Arcane Blast before the Barrage, basically. You do your Touch of the Magi, right? And then you go into your Touch phase. You do this shenanigans. Great. Now that you've done your Touch, what do? You've just consumed your Arcane Barrage stacks, or your Arcane Blast stacks, sorry. You've used up everything because you're going to Barrage after this Touch phase ends. Now what do? This is where shifting power comes in. The moment you finish your bursts, you finished your cooldown, you're good. We want to get back to our cooldowns, right? So obviously we're going to use the ability that reduces our cooldowns. We have everything on cooldown, so we might as well. So you're going to Shifting Power. The moment you're done Shifting Powering, you're going to notice that your Rune of Power cast time is like 10 seconds left. Not even. It's going to be like way less. It's going to be like 5 seconds left. That means you're 5 seconds away from another burst. Once you're at that point, once you're at that other burst, it's going to be the same thing. Now it's your mini burst. You're going to be entering your Spark phase again. This time without Arcane Surge. You're going to Rune, Radiant Spark, Arcane Blast, Arcane Blast, Arcane Blast, Arcane Blast, Nether Tempest Barrage. And as you fire your barrage, you're going to touch the Magi, like over here, and then once again you enter your touch phase again. It's it's the exact same thing, you just don't have the surge. And your Nether Tempest is delayed by an extra Arcane Blast. And then, you do your touch phase again. Now after your touch phase, this is when things get a little, filler. You're not like in cooldowns for a little bit. You're going to actually just use up your mana. Just follow the simple rotation of clear casting Arcane Missiles, Arcane Blast, clear casting Arcane Missile, Arcane Blast, If you wanna throw an orb in there, after you barrage, you can do that. The conditions for this are a little wonky. Mostly because it's to do with how much mana you have. Because what we're essentially doing in this part is we're buying time for our Evocation to come back, because we'll notice that Evocation is pretty close. So you want to buy time for that. So you kind of do what you have to do. If you can clear cast missiles and you don't have Nether Precision up, you clear cast missiles. If you have Nether Precision up, cast your Arcane Blasts if you have the mana for it. If you don't have the mana for it, keep casting Arcane Missiles. If you have no Arcane Missiles, with clear casting, you have no Arcane Blast, then you can barrage. If you've already barraged, you can orb, get the free stacks, and then you can do the same thing. Also, applying Nether Tempest at maximum arcane charges is a great way to do damage here for cheap mana. You notice the mana cost of Nether Tempest is very low compared to our other spells, but it actually does quite high damage. Note that it does do extra damage based on the number of arcane charges it has when you cast it. So if you have 4, cast it, and then barrage, yeah, you lose the stacks, but Nether Tempest still does the My mic died. But yeah, Nether Tempest will do the same damage as if it was on 4. So this is a great way to do damage while spending basically no mana. So this is a good time to start doing that in your conserve rotation. Once our evocation is ready, that's when we evocate, and then once again we repeat the same cycle. You just evocated, your Radiant Spark will be coming up, your Touch of the Magi will be soon coming up, your Arcane Surge and Rune of Power will be coming up. Typically, if you're doing the rotation properly, your Rune of Power is actually the indicator for how close you are to your next burst. Because everything is scripted, so there should be no you should never be in a situation where you cast Rune of Power and then, something else isn't off cooldown. That's not gonna happen because everything is scripted. So if you follow the same rotation, you should be A-okay. So yeah, you're gonna do that little conserve, you're gonna get Evocate back, you're gonna full channel Evocate, and then you're gonna go into your Surge plus Spark, and then you touch the Magi, Shifting Power once again, after your burst was done. After the Shifting Power, we're gonna have our Spark phase soon, the one without Surge. You're gonna go into your Spark phase, then a touch of the Magi. Then once again you're in your conserve mode, You kinda always cycling through this mode. Big burst, Evocate, big burst, Shifting Power, a few globals a little bit here and there, 3-4 globals. Mini burst, conserve. Evocate, and then we start all the way up from the start again. So over here I have a video of myself playing. So yeah, like we said, begin with Evocate, and then we're gonna go into an orb, and then we're just gonna get some missile stacks, right? We're gonna get the 16 Arcane Harmony stacks over here. My UI is a little weird, so bear with me here. But you're gonna get to at least 16 stacks. So one more. Now that I know I'm gonna have 16, now I'm gonna enter my Surge plus Spark phase, right? So Rune of Power, Radiant Spark. I'm gonna do 3 Arcane Blasts into a Nether Tempest. There was a time where you did Surge and then Nether Tempest. You can do either one. I personally recommend Nether Tempest then Surge, but this one is fine as well, where you Surge then Nether Tempest. But yeah, so Surge and then Nether Tempest. You can check my rotation here. And now we're going to, because we have Lust, I'm going to Arcane Blast Barrage together. into Touch of the Magi. If you don't have Lust, you just Arcane Barrage. But I'm gonna Arcane Blast Barrage, Touch of the Magi. Notice that I cast it after Barrage, right? Arcane Blast, Barrage, Nether Tempest, Touch of the Magi. And because it after is gonna land in. Notice also that Touch of the Magi refreshes my 4 stacks of Arcane Charges. So now I'm at max stacks again. Now I'm in my touch mode, right? I've applied Touch of the Magi, I've finished my Spark, now I'm in touch mode. So now my priority, remember, clear casting Arcane Missile, Arcane Blast, clear casting Arcane Missile, Arcane Blast. So click Arcane Missile, Arcane Blast. I had presence of mind there, so they were instant cast, but you can check over here. Arcane Missile, Arcane Blast. Arcane Missile, Arcane Blast. Arcane Missile. Note here now, this is the interesting part. I have like not even a second of my Arcane Surge remaining, and I want a Shifting Power. But at this point, because I'm going to Shifting Power and go into an orb, I actually might as well consume my charges and barrage here at the last second just to milk my Arcane Surge a little bit more. So I barrage here, 200k, quite beefy. And then I'm going to orb. Here, you can technically Shifting Power. I like to do 1 Arcane Blast, or if I have 3 clear casting Arcane Missiles, I'll do 1 Arcane Missiles as well. Either one is fine. You don't have to do this. You can just Shifting Power. The reason I like to do Arcane Blast here is just so that when I do Shifting Power, if I got a proc of Concentration, which as you recall is that buff that makes your clear casting not to be consumed, I'll know like there's time to react. So it just gives me a little heads up. Didn't happen here. I consume my Arcane Missiles anyway. Shifting Power. And now notice that I have 5 seconds left on my rune. So I have 5 seconds till my next big burst. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to consume my Arcane Missiles and keep doing Arcane Blast. You can, if you're not at 20 stacks, you can keep consuming missiles just to get to 20 first before you prioritize your Arcane Blasts. It's kind of up to you. Officially speaking, you should be Arcane Blasting instead of prioritizing your Harmony stacks. I like to focus more on the bursts. I want to juice up my bursts really hard. So, sometimes I might go for the Arcane Harmony stacks here. But because I knew I was going to get to 18, I didn't worry about it too much. 18 is enough, It's like I'm missing 2 stacks. It's not a big deal. So I'm going to go into Arcane Blast. I'm going to consume my Arcane Missiles here because I have nothing else to do. Arcane Blast. The moment my Rune of Power is done, straight away, Rune of Power. And now we're in our Spark phase once again. So Rune of Power, Radiant Spark. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then Nether Tempest. And then Barrage, Touch of the Magi. See how that refreshed my charges there? And now I'm in touch phase again. Arcane Missiles. I cast 2 because I had... let me rewind it here. I had Concentration. That's why my clear castings here are green. It's this buff over here, the purple dude with a mustache. It makes your next clear casting not be consumed, right? So let me kind of go through this touch phase. So now I'm like barraging and going into my touch, right? I kind of just rewind it. So now I have basically... kind of think of it as like 4 clear casting stacks. So I'm going to consume number 4 and then I'm going to consume number 3. The reason I do this is because if I Arcane Blast and then I get a proc of clear casting, it's kind of like a wasted proc, right? If I haven't missiled. I don't want to waste clear casting procs. So I'm going to do 2 in a row so that if I do proc 1, it's not wasted. Arcane Blast, Arcane Missile. Arcane Blast, and then Arcane Missile. Obviously, my dummy is low HP here. If your target is in execute range, you should barrage here for the last global of Touch of the Magi. But, I'm going to ignore that the dummy's dead because the dummy is always dead. But yeah, I'm going to here now just go into the regular conserve rotation. Arcane Blast, Arcane Missile. If you don't have Arcane Missile, so you notice here, I cast Nether Tempest. This is because I don't have any clear castings. And all I'm going to do is Arcane Blast, and my mana is not looking too hot. It's okay. I could probably Arcane Blast a little bit more, but Nether Tempest just to be safe. Kind of just spending a little bit of mana. Oh, I get a clear casting? Okay, let's use it. Clear casting, Arcane Blast. And then I'm probably going to Missile and then Evocate. Yeah. So, a few options here. If I rewind a little bit. At this point, if I actually rewind a little bit more, you'll notice when I cast my my Nether Tempest here earlier. My Evocation comes off cooldown. A lot of people will tell you to just Evocate here. And if you Evocate here, what's going to happen is your Rune of Power is going to have 10 seconds remaining, which means you're 10 seconds away from your burn. And then you're going to have to spend some mana, basically. You're going to spend some mana on some stuff, just spamming Arcane Blast and missiles. And then you're going to go into your Surge phase. But remember that Surge does damage based off how much mana we have. So it seems weird to be like Evocating at 35% to spend some mana later. Like, I might as well spend it now. Like, what's the difference, you know? So I'm going to spend more Arcane Blast here. The important thing to note is that Evocate is a 5-second cast. So you never want to actually be, like, you know, holding off your Evocate when your Rune of Power is 5 seconds or less remaining. Because when it's 5 seconds remaining, by the time you're done Evocating, you're going to go into your burst straight away. So don't delay too much, basically, is the moral of the story. Here, 7 seconds, I was happy with it. You'll notice as I Evocate, I'm just going to do one Arcane Blast, and then I'm going to go into my touch phase again, or my Radiant Spark Surge phase. See, 1, 2, 3. I kind of messed up there, so I had to interrupt the cast. Don't do that. Don't mess up. Do an Arcane Surge, Nether Tempest, and then you go into your Touch of the Magi and Touch of the Magi phase. Like I said, you can Nether Tempest before or after Surge, up to you. But yeah. So I'm just spamming Arcane Blast here because I don't have any procs. Let me just rewind it a little bit. So I entered my Touch of the Magi, right? I used my Clear Casting, Arcane Blast, and now I don't have Clear Castings, right, anymore. So what do? We just keep filling with Arcane Blast. Arcane Blast, Arcane Blast. I didn't react to that. No human can react to that in that time. But as soon as I'm done with this blast, I know I'm gonna Missile. And then I'm gonna Arcane Blast, and I'm gonna do one more because notice I have 1 more second of Arcane Surge left. So I'm gonna blast Barrage here, right, to milk that Surge a little bit more. Gonna Orb. I'm gonna consume my concentration. Note that, you know, I did have a proc here, that's why my thing is green. So I consume my Clear Casting concentration, doesn't get used up, thanks to concentration. And now I'm going to Arcane Blast one more time and then Shifting Power, right? This is just my preference. You can Shifting Power earlier. I'm gonna Arcane Missile here. My Rune of Power is up, okay. You know, I kind of just get some stacks. I shouldn't have done that a little bit. I should have rent into my Rune straight away. But yeah, Radiant Spark, 4 Arcane Blasts. You can see them over here. Rune, Radiant Spark, 4 Arcane Blasts. Nether Tempest, Barrage, Touch of the Magi, and then Missile, AB. I did 2 there because I got a concentration, right? If you have a concentration, you do want to consume them. Let me rewind that there. So, you know, 1, 2, 3, Barrage. And like, I know that I have concentration, right? My UI is telling me because my Clear Castings are green. So as soon as I Barrage, Touch of the Magi, I know that I'm going to be consuming 2 Clear Castings in a row, once again, to not waste them, right? So Clear Cast. You might be saying, well, Forgy, you're wasting your Nether Precision stacks, right? Because I'm casting back-to-back Arcane Missiles. Yes, that's true. But it's more important to not waste Clear Casting than it is to not waste Nether Precision. Because Nether, you know, Clear Casting gives you 2 Nether Precision. So wasting a Clear Casting is also wasting Nether Precision. And wasting the Clear Casting itself, right? Double whammy. So, you know, double Clear Casting here. Get down to basically not be capped on charges. And then Arcane Blast, Arcane Missiles, Arcane Blast, 1, 2, Missiles. See, at this point now my mana is not too healthy, right? My Evocation is coming up in 10 seconds. My Rune of Power is in 20 seconds. I have 20% mana. So at this point I'm thinking, I need to conserve more mana. So my options are I'm going to start playing for Nether Tempest more. And I'm going to start playing for maybe a Barrage as well. Maybe fire off a Barrage, because that's, you know, not as mana expensive. This is actually what I do here. I Barrage. And now I'm at 0 stacks, right? Well, good thing we have Orb, right? Let us skip the cheap, weak Arcane Blast at the start. 1 stack, 2 stack, Arcane Blast, Arcane Missile. Apply my Nether Tempest, why not? It's mana free. Basically free. Arcane Blast, Arcane Missiles. Now note here I'm right? But I do have Clear Casting stacks, but my Evocation is also ready. It's kind of up to you what you do here. Like, you know, there is probably a correct decision. Some people will tell you to Evocate. I like to Arcane Missiles here. but you can Evocate if you want and then spend some mana. Either way is fine. But as you'll see, I kind of missiles get a bit more. Main reason I like to missile is just to get to my max stacks harmony. But technically, you can do that after your evocation with benefits from the intellect. But yeah. Anyway, Arcane Blast, Arcane Blast, Arcane Missile, Arcane Blast. My Rune of Power is ready. Time to go. Rune of Power, Radiant Spark. And you know, it's just the same sequence over and over again. So I hope this kind of shows the cadence of what I'm talking about here. Let me know if you have any questions or if I should have done anything more clearly. I'm sorry I'm not like super technical, you know, with super fancy presentations and things. If you have any advice, feel free to post it in the comments. But yeah, let me know what worked for you, what explanations were good, you know, what worked for people, what things were not clear so I can make them more clear in the future. But yeah, thank you for watching the part 3 now of this video. I'll be uploading a Mythic Plus version of this as well. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to join the Discord once again, which will be in the description below, so you can ask questions. But yeah, thank you for watching. Till next time.